The desert sun blazes mercilessly. The air shimmers with heat. A lone woman stumbles through the wilderness of Shur, clutching her thin garment around her as dust swirls at her feet. Her lips are cracked. Her eyes burn from tears. Each step is heavier than the last. Have you ever felt invisible, like nobody sees your pain, your struggle, or your tears? There was once a woman in the Bible who knew exactly how that felt. She was a servant, a foreigner, rejected by her mistress, abandoned in the desert. Her name is Hagar, a stranger, a runaway, and a mother to be carrying a promise she does not yet understand. She collapses near a dry patch of land, gasping for breath, alone, rejected, forgotten, or so it seems. She whispers into the scorching silence, "Does anyone see me? Does anyone care?" And in that moment of despair, her story begins. Before the wilderness, Hagar's life was bound to a household of great wealth and divine promise. Abraham, called by God, chosen to be the father of nations, and Sarah, his wife, the matriarch of faith. But behind the grandeur of tents and herds, there was tension. Sarah was barren. The years passed, and her womb remained empty. Each passing season was a reminder of God's promise unfulfilled. And in those days, barrenness was not just personal pain, it was public shame. Hagar, an Egyptian servant, watched silently. She fetched water, baked bread, and served at Sarah's side. She had no voice in the household, no freedom over her destiny. She was property, but unknowingly, her life was about to be entangled with God's promise in ways she could never imagine. One night, under the starry sky, Sarah made a desperate decision. She turned to Abraham and said, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Imagine the silence that followed. Abraham torn between love for Sarah, faith in God's promise, and the desire for an heir. Finally, he agreed. And just like that, Hagar's life was no longer her own. She was given to Abraham not out of love, but out of desperation. Her body became the battlefield for someone else's promise. She conceived. For the first time in her life, she carried something powerful, life within her. But with that child growing in her womb, something else grew too: tension. Sarah watched Hagar's swelling belly with bitter eyes. Hagar, once a humble servant, now looked upon Sarah with quiet pride. She had what Sarah longed for. And though she never spoke it aloud, her gaze said it all. "I carry the future. I carry what you could not." Sarah's heart burned with jealousy. Abraham's household became a place of whispers, harsh words, and silent battles. One day Sarah could take no more. She lashed out, mistreating Hagar with cruelty and rage. Harsh words, heavy tasks, sleepless nights. Every act was meant to remind Hagar of her place, a servant, not a queen. But Hagar could not bear it. Her pride and her pain became too great. So one night, she fled. She ran into the desert, pregnant and alone, away from the only life she knew. The sun rose on her as she wandered into the wild. Her feet blistered, her body ached. The child inside her kicked, reminding her that her choices were no longer her own. Hunger gnawed at her. Thirst dried her throat, and with every passing hour, the wilderness whispered one question: will you survive? She reached a spring of water. Falling to her knees, she wept, bitter, broken, and utterly alone. Her tears fell into the dust as she whispered, "Why me? Why must I suffer this fate? Am I forgotten by the God of Abraham?" And then silence gave way to something else. A voice, gentle yet commanding. "Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going?" Her heart froze. Someone saw her. Someone knew her name. "Where have you come from, and where are you going?" She lifts her head slowly, her eyes searching. Before her stands a figure radiant, yet cloaked in humility. Not a mirage, not a dream. This is a messenger of the living God. Her lips tremble as she answers, "I am running away from my mistress, Sarah." The figure steps closer, his eyes piercing but kind. His words cut through the wilderness air. Return to your mistress, submit to her authority. The words sting. Return to the woman who tormented her, to the household where she was treated as less than nothing. It feels like a cruel command. But before she can protest, the voice continues with a promise that changes everything. I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count. Her breath catches. Her unborn child, he will live. He will not be forgotten. The angel points to her womb, his voice echoing with destiny. You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He will live in hostility toward all his brothers. The words are both promise and warning. Her son will survive. He will grow strong, untamed, unstoppable. He will not live in chains as she has. He will not be useless like she was, but his life will be marked with conflict. Yet to Hagar, one thing matters above all. God has heard her misery. God has seen her pain. Her tears this time not of despair, but of awe. She whispers words that will echo through eternity. You are the God who sees me. In that moment, Hagar, the Egyptian slave, the outcast, the runaway, becomes the first person in Scripture to give God a name. El Roi, the God who sees. Think about that. Not Abraham, the great patriarch, not Sarah, the matriarch of promise, but Hagar, the servant, the outsider. She becomes the one to declare, God sees, God knows, God cares. The spring where she knelt is no longer ordinary. It becomes a sacred marker of divine encounter, the place where despair turned into destiny. From that day it is known as Bir Lahai Roi, the well of the living one who sees me. Whenever she would pass by, she would remember, God met her here, not in Abraham's tent, not in Sarah's chamber, but in the wilderness, where no one else cared, God showed up. Hagar's encounter is not just ancient history, it's our story too. How many times have we felt unseen, cast aside, rejected by people we trusted? How many times have we cried out in silence, wondering if anyone hears? And yet, like Hagar, in the wilderness of our lives, God whispers, I see you, I hear you, I know your pain. Sometimes, his command feels difficult, like returning to situations we'd rather run from. But with every command comes a promise, a destiny, a future we cannot yet see. Strengthened by the encounter, Hagar rises. Her feet are blistered, but her heart is stronger. She places her hands over her womb, whispering the name promised, Ishmael. She turns her face back toward the path she came from, back to Sarah, back to Abraham, back to the place of her pain. But this time, she walks not as a broken servant, but as a woman who has seen the living God. The desert no longer feels like the end, it feels like a beginning. Years have passed. Abraham's camp has grown larger. The promise of God continues to unfold, but so does the tension. Sarah, who once wept bitterly in barrenness, now holds a miracle in her arms, Isaac, the child of promise. At last, her womb has brought forth life. Laughter fills her tent, just as God said it would. Isaac's very name means laughter. But where laughter lives, jealousy lurks. One afternoon, Sarah watches Ishmael, the son of Hagar, mocking little Isaac. Ishmael, now a teenager, carries the strength of his prophecy, bold, untamed, unafraid. But to Sarah, it is dangerous. She sees not just a boy playing, but a rival. Her voice shakes with fury as she turns to Abraham. Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that slave woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. Abraham's heart breaks. Ishmael is his son too, his flesh, his blood, his firstborn. Memories of Ishmael's first cry, his first steps, his laughter, they all come rushing back. How can he cast him out? But God speaks to Abraham. Do not be distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. But I will also make the son of the slave woman into a nation, because he is your offspring. The words are bittersweet. Ishmael will not be forgotten, but he must leave. At dawn, Abraham prepares provisions, bread, a skin of water. He places them on Hagar's shoulder, his hands trembling. He looks at Ishmael one last time, his eyes heavy with sorrow. And then they go. Hagar and her son step into the wilderness again, this time not as runaways, but as castaways. The sun rises higher, the water runs low, Ishmael grows faint, his steps slow. Finally, he collapses under a bush, too weak to continue. Hagar looks at her boy, the child she carried, the son she nurtured. Her heart shatters. She cannot bear to watch him die. She moves away, sits at a distance, and lifts her voice in anguish. "I cannot watch the boy die." And she weeps. But heaven is not silent. The angel of God calls to Hagar from heaven. "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." At that very moment, Hagar's eyes are opened. She sees a well of water nearby. She rushes, fills the skin, and runs back to her son. She presses the water to his lips, and life returns to him. The wilderness that once seemed like death becomes the place of survival. The scripture says, God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. Ishmael grew strong, untamed, a man of the wild. From him came nations, tribes, and peoples who would spread across the deserts. Hagar, once a servant without a voice, became the matriarch of nations. The woman who once asked, "Does anyone see me?" discovered that the living God not only saw her but was with her every step of the way. Hagar's journey is not just history, it is a mirror of our own lives. God sees you in your wilderness. Like Hagar, we all face moments of rejection, loneliness, or despair. People may cast us aside, but God never does. He is El Roi, the God who sees. Pain can lead to purpose. Hagar's greatest pain, being cast out, was the very path to her destiny. Sometimes the places we fear most are where God reveals his power the strongest. Your children carry promise. Hagar wept over Ishmael, thinking he was lost, but God declared, "I will make him a great nation." Your children, your dreams, your legacy, God has not forgotten them. Trust God's provision. In the desert, Hagar found a well she never saw before. God's provision may already be near you, just haven't seen it yet. Trust that he will open your eyes. Hagar's story began with rejection but ended with redemption. She walked through deserts of despair, but each time she discovered a God who sees, who hears, and who provides. To anyone listening today, maybe you feel unseen, abandoned, or without hope. Remember Hagar. The same God who saw her in the wilderness sees you right now. He has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. And like Hagar, one day you will look back and declare with confidence,
Thank you for watching my video at Bible Story Sport. And please remember to like, comment, and subscribe so that you will not miss out in my next video. See you then.